Tyson versus Jake Paul. I can't believe this is real, guys. The audience goes crazy. The wait is finally over. Here we go.
Mike Tyson vs. Jake Paul. The first can't believe this is real, guys. The audience goes crazy. The wait is finally over. Here we go. Jake Paul vs. Mike Tyson. If someone had told you about this matchup a couple of years ago, you would have laughed it off. However, it was just a few years ago that Mike Tyson helped launch Jake's boxing career into the mainstream on the event where Tyson fought Roy Jones Jr. Jake fought against Nate Robinson. The popularity of Mike's name brought attention to Paul's fight, and now just a few years later, Jake has fought multiple times in the ring and is ready to face his most intimidating opponent yet. Or could Tyson turn out to be his easiest fight? To make sense of this unusual matchup, let's first remember what made a young Mike Tyson so special. Then we'll analyze his last fight against Roy Jones Jr. and compare that performance to Jake Paul's most recent two fights. After that, we'll have a clearer idea of who will come out on top in this showdown. Prime Mike Tyson. Mike is known for his brutal combinations, body-head work. It's impossible to imitate so many combinations with pad work, so his coach Cas D'Amato created a boxing bag called the Willie Machine. The point of it was to number the hits and perform the combinations just by listening to the numbers. In total there were 8 punches in Cas's school, and each of them had its own number: 1 left hook, 2 right hook or straight, 3 uppercut with the left hand, 4 uppercut with the right hand, 5 hook to the body with the left hand, 6 hook to the body with the right hand, 7 jab, 8 jab to the body. The coach called a certain set of numbers, for example 5-3-2, and Mike immediately performed the combination first on the bag and then on his opponents. But to perform such complex and long combinations you need good footwork, shifting to the side, and the performance of the Iron Mike has become a real art. His arsenal had a huge number of ways to reduce the distance pendulum, where he relied more on his legs than the rotation of the body. Dives where the legs were also used in the first place, explosions with the change of stance, pivot, sid steps, and many other tools in Tyson's footwork. Thanks to this he could play hide and seek with opponents who did not see him but could feel the weight of his punches, after which Mike again hid behind them, cutting the corner. Despite the huge number of movements, cutting corners and headwork, the essence of Tyson's style was the most severe pressure, not a step back. To implement such a capacious, energy-consuming style in terms of technique you need strong focus and zero doubts, because at such speeds the split seconds determine the outcome of the fight. C. D'Amato understood this, so he did everything to make Mike never doubt himself, and he used fear of his opponent as fuel for training, after which fear turned into confidence when he went out to the ring, which made the opponent feel fear. But even a seemingly perfect machine like Mike Tyson has flaws. His PR team skillfully conceals these to this day, leading many to believe that Tyson's losses were solely due to losing discipline and motivation. However, this isn't entirely true. Custito wasn't just any trainer. He coached 2 of the youngest heavyweight champions, both of whom had a similar fighting style, and therein lies the problem. The Pabuz style is incredibly energy intensive and works well as long as the opponent is frightened and shocked. But once the opponent isn't afraid and the fighter using the style loses some energy, the whole style begins to fall apart. This is why Mike Tyson lost in the same way every time. Everyone who defeated him wasn't scared of him, which allowed them to catch their breath during the fight and focus on constantly working the jab. This kept Tyson at a distance, and when Mike got angry and tried to close the distance to his preferred fighting range, he would get caught in a clinch where his arms would get worn out, and he'd grow frustrated. This is how he lost to Douglas Lewis, and it's why he headbutted Holyfield and then bit his ear off. He just couldn't find a solution to constant clinches and long jabs. You're likely to quote Tyson's famous L in the comments: everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. But the problem is that plan worked every time, and it even worked many years later against Roy Jones. Tyson vs. Jones. Tyson starts the fight very actively, making it seem like vintage Mike is back. However, there's a moment after his double jab that hints something isn't quite right. Mike doesn't continue pressing forward like he used to. Instead, he pauses and just follows Roy around. But after this moment, Tyson redeems himself by taking the center of the ring and pressing Roy against the ropes, cutting off his movement. Yet as soon as Mike steps past the center, he makes the same mistake again. He freezes and lets Roy go. To Tyson's credit, he quickly finds his timing. Despite years out of the ring, Roy throws a jab, Mike slips inside it and Counters in his classic style, another counter, but this time Mike slips to the outside and lands a body hook, but then he forgets to control the center, chases after Jones and ends up freezing again, allowing Roy to escape. This shows the main problem with Mike Tyson's style that has plagued him throughout his career. The clinch. He always struggled to avoid clinches, worked poorly within them, and couldn't escape them effectively due to his height. It was his problems with clinching that cost him every fight he lost. Jones changes tactics, working quick jabs and then retreating from Tyson's range. This strategy works well because due to his age Mike couldn't counter quickly enough, and when he tried to step out of the center of the ring he got caught in Roy's clinch just when it seemed like Roy had found an answer to Mike's style. Tyson throws a feint in the second round, making Jones move to his right, and Mike catches him with a hook instead of chasing Roy, as he did in the first round. Mike made Jones run straight into his hook, but again it ended in a clinch. It's worth noting that for the past 10 years or more this has been Roy Jones's fighting style. Having lost speed and reflexes, he learned to land a punch and then immediately tee up his opponent in a clinch, or when the opponent finished a combination he would catch them in a clinch right away. Tyson slips forward, but since he stayed in place Roy Jones got confused. Mike easily gave up the hand Roy was controlling him with and attacked with his free hand. Essentially the main problem with this version of Tyson is his inability to compensate for the lack of speed with ring control and distance management, because when he moves correctly at the right distance Jones poses no threat to him. For example, in this segment of the fight Tyson feints Jones, making him prepare to counter with a jab, but Mike anticipates this and throws his jab while lunging forward, then uses proper footwork to corner Roy and unloads combinations for the perfect attack. He needed to step out of the fighting range, but because he froze, Roy safely entered the clinch. 80-52. Mike repeats the same setup, but this time when it comes to the clinch he takes the overhooks first and controls Jones's hands. In summary, we can only admire Tyson's physical abilities at his age, but his flaw in clinch work can still be exploited if a lighter and more battered Roy Jones could tie him up in a clinch than a younger and stronger Jake Paul certainly can. So let's take a look at Jake Paul's recent fights. Jake Paul fights in the fight against Andre August. Jake started with his signature move, the shuffle, which he's been using for a couple of years, but he still doesn't grasp its essence. The rhythm of his feet doesn't align with the rhythm of his hands to generate powerful strikes. It's more like jumps to rel stress, but he does one thing right: he extends his front hand to control the distance. Progress didn't stop there. Paul demonstrated improvement in jabs and footwork, a jab followed by lateral movement, then Paul synchronized footwork with his punches. Paul initiated attacks, feinting a jab to the head, causing the opponent to raise his hands. He followed it with a jab to the body. Andre, from nerves, decided to duck very low, practically to Jake's knees. After this moment, August gradually attempted to apply pressure. Paul responded with a feint jab to the head followed by a hook, but he missed. Andre continued pressing but was too passive. Realizing this himself, he tried a jab to the body. Jake immediately countered with a jab to the head. Andre attempted to respond with his jab, but Paul's punch was too strong, making the counter ineffective. Jake intensified his attacks, using a double jab for pressure and adding a hook to the body. August responded by trying to dive under the punches. Apparently anticipating this, Paul entered a clinch, applying his weight on the opponent. However, for some reason Andre didn't pay attention to it, reacting to Jake's feints with dives. The logic is clear: he tries to use head movement to close the distance and counter Jake's movements, however he does it too predictably. It's immediately apparent he'll dive and leap with a strike. His response to everything Jake does: Paul seemingly prepares an attack, a hook to the head. He constantly uses a jab to the head and a hook to the body to suddenly deliver a hook to the head, hence August fearing a head strike constantly ducks to evade the impending head blow. The same attack, and August reacts the same as before, but emphasis exercises his block more on the body. Andre attempts some pressure with a jab, but the strike is weak and there's no shift or closing in after the hit. For this, Paul quickly punished him with a powerful double jab. August became more active, using head and body movement to make it harder to hit him. This quickly paid off. The hook that Paul had prepared for so long missed the opponent, but Jake adapted very quickly. It's perhaps the best and smartest moment in his career. Paul throws a double jab